and on to the factory of sadness that is Halo.
I have a quiz for you really quick.
Oh, sweet. I love quizzes.
Halo quiz.
Hmm.
In 2021, what was the game that they released for Halo that sucked ass?
Oh.
Well, they haven't released it yet.
In 2021, they will, though.
No, it would have been.
Just say it, Matt. You know you want to say it.
Call of
Come
Duty
on.
Vanguard is my final answer.
I just want you to answer that it's going to suck.
I have. There's a lot of red flags that have popped up over the last week.
And
Do you
do red flags suck? Just say it.
Generally, they're not a good sign.
So
We
as
don't know. It's not out yet, so I can't. We can't
okay,
answer that.
fair enough. We did get a release date for Halo Infinite, though. That is one thing that came from this. So we'll start off with that. December 8th.
Boo.
They need the time. They absolutely need the time. December 8th, you can go potentially play both the multiplayer and the campaign itself without co-op. We'll see if they can push it. Get there by the 8th.
Let's stick with the good news first.
And
Good news.
Think there's good
something
news here.
something
What?
really cool, and I'm kind of sad that Matt wasn't able to grab one.
I am too.
But there's a new controller and a 20th anniversary Series X that will be available by
Don't tell them.
scalpers.
We're trying to get a one. Don't let them know.
Yeah.
It's just like the PlayStation 5s and the Series X currently. It's scalpers that are hitting those hard. It's
Sadly,
not,
yes.
It's
I mean-
not people that are getting them.
I was fortunate enough to be able to grab one of the controllers, the Elite controllers, but which I believe, Matt, you did too.
I got my hands on that as well. Yeah.
But this,
I thought they were all out, and then somebody messaged me like they're back up. And I'm like, okay, bam, ordered it. The Elite controller looks beautiful.
it does look really nice.
The console looks really good. I wish they used the color scheme and design they had on the Elite controller on the console. I love the Halo 3 Xbox 360 console. It's the best looking Xbox console they've released so far to date, and I wish they would have done that similar. It's again similar kind of color scheme to the Elite controller they announced today, and what should have been the Series X. But I had a lot of cool ideas here. I'm gonna tell you a cool idea. Phil Spencer, I know you're listening. I'm willing to listen. If you want to hire me, you probably should. You should have had this Master Chief color schemed Xbox One, your spinner light, the big grill up top, right? If you're vertical with your Series X, you should have a blue LED on the fan in there. So you kind of have this pulsating blue light look. Give me a cool little clear Cortana, or I guess the weapon, like action figure, like a little 6-inch action figure. You can slap right up there, like, because there's holes in the grill on top of it, right?
It's got to be like see-through, right?
Yep, a translucent looking weapon, as she's called, or whatever, the weapon, whatever, right? And then to make it even sweeter, the cool Seagate expansion memory cards, you make that look like an AI chip that goes in the back of Master Chief's helmet. Bam! I have the coolest Xbox Series X design ever. Phil Spencer, hire me.
The problem with that is that sounds like a console that would be created as a love letter to the fans.
Yeah.
But
Oh
the
man,
game
there's so
doesn't
much
seem to
bitterness
reflect
right
that.
now.
Hold on. Let's kind of keep with the good news first. Okay.
Oh, I
So-
thought we finished it.
So we got the release date. We got the Elite controller. Looks awesome. The console looks pretty neat. We also today got a trailer for the multiplayer. They're kind of doing stories with the season. So there's that CGI trailer out there. You get introduced to. Okay, I was angry enough that I didn't even write her name down. Whoever's in charge of that story. The other thing we also got kind of bleeded. A lot of this information we're going to talk about is actually from last week too. I guess whatever, a little over a week ago from when you're probably first listening to this, they put out a Vidoc, 30 minutes long. They talked about the flight that just happened a couple weeks ago. That went well. They got a lot of information from it, which is pretty cool. They announced that they will be doing a multiplayer. Was it like a 4v4 multiplayer and a big team battle flight next? No news on that. I was hoping they were going to announce that today, but no news from there. just kind of some cool things from there. Just it was, I got to play it a little bit. It was pretty good. I think we already talked about that, but yeah, it was kind of fun. It felt pretty good. But I think, looking here, I think that's where the good news stops.
Still not sure where the good news was in there.
Oh man,
I think it's going on. And also, we didn't get any single player stuff here at Gamescom. They did mention that a week ago in the Vidoc thing. So I did get angry about that, and then I went back and read it. I was like, oh yeah, they did prep me and say there wasn't going to be any single player. But that also leads in. How's this? That leads into our first problem. We have a release date now, 4 months away. 3 months, basically 3 months, because it's early December and it's late August right now, right? We haven't seen campaign for a year, over a year.
That's because
this
still
is
looks
coming
like
out
Minecraft.
in 3 months, and something is wrong with this game, and they're still releasing it on the 8th. There's no co-op campaign. What the hell's wrong with you, 343?
Maybe.
Dan turned his camera off in rage.
No, the stupid thing was fuzzy.
Maybe it's going to be just fine, perfect, and pretty. Maybe they just don't want to spoil how much they've done to change it until it's, done, because they cannot afford to do another
my theory is they just
update.
They know that people are just going to bitch regardless of what they do, so they're just like, whatever, we're just not going to show it.
So a lot of my arguments and problems come from two things, and this was my argument last year whenever I complained about their poor showing of the single player. This is Microsoft/Xbox's flagship IP. This is Halo. This made you. And they've also said it. And they also said the second thing. They've also said for over a year now, this is a love letter to Halo fans. So any of my arguments now come off of those two things, right? So that's where that's why I get mad about these things.
I'm going to destroy one of those arguments right away. Game Pass is now their IP.
Mm-hmm.
Halo doesn't matter as much as Game Pass.
State of Decay is going to take over their flagship IP.
Of the way they've showed at E3 and here at Gamescom, I think Forza is going to take over. Jeez.
Well, yeah,
not knocking that game, but they've spent a lot of time on Forza Horizon 5 this year, and not
it's so pretty.
When you show a giant pile of turds, you have to come back with something that looks absolutely gorgeous, right? You can't be like, well, here's the polished turd. Like, you have to give them something, and those Forza games are pretty. They are absolutely gorgeous. It is a console selling level of pretty.
But so the thing that bugs me though in the red flags is the fact that we're, again, go ahead, argue Game Pass, right? But this is Microsoft's flagship IP, Halo. This is Halo.
It's
right?
their mascot. It's maybe not IP.
Craig is their mascot,
Nintendo
but
has
part
Mario.
of Halo. Yeah, right.
Master Chief is Xbox.
Well, I guess at the time of E3, we didn't know it was 6 months out. We now know it's about a little over 3 months out. And there's nothing. There is nothing they've done since last year has brought any excitement to this. There was no energy even in the announcements at E3 or here today. There's something wrong with this. And I even put it in my notes is I can't wait for the Jason Schreier article after this game is released to see, because he's hopefully talking to somebody there. Because something in development is very flawed here in Halo Infinite. The fact that we're not getting, we forgot to mention one thing. In the Vidoc last week, they mentioned that there's no co-op campaign until season 2, which is going to be 3 months later. So what's that? March, right? I guess, right?
Yeah, that's what we
early March is.
I don't even have enough faith in them that they'll have that ready by then. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets delayed.
So that's coming early March. And then what's coming 6 months later in season 3 is Forge. 2 big game modes. Now I'm gonna piss maybe some listeners off that love Forge. I don't think that's a key pillar. I think it's a very big pillar of Halo, but it's also something I haven't used a lot. But it's huge in the custom game community. It's one thing that helps keep this player base alive after it's kind of dwindled off and everybody's off playing a new COD, right? But co-op campaign is the thing that I am so pissed about. I have played every single game with a friend on launch night, and now after 20 years, this love letter to Halo fans, they just give me a big fuck you, dude. This is Not a love.
I said
This is not a
the
love
other
letter
I
addressed to you.
disagree about calling it a fuck you because it's not like they're not doing it. There's some issue,
But
and it's coming late.
like I said the other day, and I think you were here, Chris, when I said it. Like,
Probably.
how the hell is it that a game like Crackdown 3 that went through development hell for years, had hands past a million different developers, launch with co-op mode? And yet a AAA company making a AAA title is delaying co-op because they can't get it to work right. Like,
And-
what the fuck?
Well,
And this wasn't an add-on feature to Halo. We know this was in there in the plans. This isn't like, oh, okay, we got the game's pretty much finished. Now let's add co-op. No, it's like we were even saying with like PC support. That stuff is in there from the start. When to your point, we can even keep it to Halo, Dan. What game would we have gotten last year had this launched when it was supposed to?
Yeah.
Because that was going to have co-op. That was going to have Forge. That was going to be the complete Halo pack. What awful abomination were we going to get last year before they rightly delayed it to this year? And I think should delay till next year.
Yeah, I'd be fine with the delay. I mean, hell, just if you're not going to have co-op, just postpone the whole thing as far as I'm concerned.
And here's the argument I get tired of hearing. Oh, well, they can fix it later. It's a live service game, or just get us fans that just want to play the story in multiplayer. We shouldn't have to wait. No, you're enabling bad habits here, right? I think we touched on this a couple weeks ago with, and I think Rich and Cullen did a good job touching on this when we were talking about Blizzard. Is you vote with your wallets, and unfortunately, people are still doing that. People are fine with getting half-baked games. I guess me personally, I'm just tired of it. Give me a good game. It can still be live service. I got nothing against live service or games as service. But stop using that as an excuse to put out something half-baked or something that doesn't have a core feature. And I will still argue till the end that co-op is a core feature and should be there at launch for Halo.
Have you met Nintendo?
Yes, there are plenty of great studios I know, Mike, that make good games.
Nintendo,
yes.
like just
and
go,
finished games.
Go get the Switch and you can play finished games.
Honestly, at this point, because it seems like I got screwed out of getting a Halo console, I might just throw some of my gift card at a Switch at this point. I was excited
Slowly
when
converting.
I saw Walmart the other day had the Animal Crossing edition in there. I was like,
Oh yeah, they blew up. They were all over here too. Like Target and Walmart had like 15 copies of them.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
They sold out pretty quick. But
It's just it's very frustrating. And
well, it's even more annoying, like looking at that Reddit thread that you shared that like talks about the different features missing in the game since 343 took over. Like, what the hell? And I mean, this was an issue like when you were talking about like games not coming fully featured. I mean, that was one of the biggest downsides that happened when you first started getting the Xbox Live stuff and online games where they could send updates to games.
Mhm.
Because then they would kind of ship them early. It's like, oh, we can just send an update for bug fixes afterwards or whatever. And I mean, that's turned into the trend. And now we're going to have more stuff like this being a trend where it's like, we'll just add a major feature later. It doesn't matter. We'll just get it out there.
343 needs to be less Bungie and more Naughty Dog or Santa Monica or Guerrilla Games.
Putting out they want to be more like Bungie, like old Bungie, not new Bungie.
Oh, okay. I was comparing to current studios,
Okay.
right? Like, look at. I'm not gonna say they're perfect. No game is perfect when they release, but all those blockbuster hits from PlayStation, they're gonna. I mean, they delayed Horizon. We just talked about
Forbidden West.
Forbidden West.
Forward West.
Or I mean, if you want
Dawn
a really
West.
easy one, God of War Ragnarok got delayed because they didn't want to
yeah.
crunch.
Right?
Mm.
They didn't want to crunch. They wanted to put out a quality game. And what also, again, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way is in this Vidoc before they announced that co-op was not going to be in there. Joe Staten, one of my heroes, still is, but I'm guessing he just had a shit of game handed to him that he had to get out in a year. He came on and told this touching story in this Vidoc about co-op and how he was playing through with his son. And then he's like, guess what? No co-op in Infinite. Sorry. We only want to put out a quality game. This feature that I was just saying was great and Halo fans have loved for 20 years and is an integral part of, it's like split screen. They effed up in Halo 5 by not including local split screen, right? Like, just 343 needs to be shut down, or
Biggest problem was
or everybody
Connie still
fired.
there, or did
I
they
don't
finally
know.
get rid of her?
I don't know. Management, yeah, maybe management needs to be cleaned out. I know they've cleaned. That was something we talked about last year. They cleaned house of a lot of management. It's just, I don't know what's going on there. But to your point, like you brought up there, Dan, every game they've released, 343 has released Halo 4, Halo 5, the Abomination that was Master Chief Collection when that first came out.
Yeah.
None of them have been finished. None of them have been a complete product. And this is not something you want out of a first party studio making and controlling your flagship IP.
Do you think this comes out better than Cyberpunk in the end?
So
I think it will.
I think multiplayer, the little taste I have, and we'll have opinions when they do the next flight, assuming one or all of us get in. I actually think the multiplayer is going to be pretty good. We'll see. We'll have our opinions on that.
Because Cyberpunk has so much multiplayer.
But it's going to be functioning and good, right? Single player functioning, yes. A game that works, probably yes. I don't know. There's something. I don't have my hopes up for this open world stuff they're talking about. I think that was a poor decision. Chris, feel free to jump in instead of just laughing.
No, you're kind of going. I'm just gonna let this go.
Yeah, I haven't started crying yet, so
you're
that's
saying
good.
You don't like the idea of Halo Wildlands?
I think it was a poor design decision in Gears to. It all depends on the open world and how it plays out. The open world in Gears didn't need to be there. I don't know why that was there. I don't know why it was touted as a cool feature. Didn't need to be there in the 2 levels it was.
So what I worry about with this is, and this is my only knock on Wildlands, is that you get a mission, you go do it. Often, like, there's a patrol of some kind that really felt like it just extended the gameplay. Like, there was you drive to a location, you and your boys hit it with your drones and whatever, and clear it out. And you go try and leave after you're like half dead, very little ammo left. All of a sudden, here comes 3 patrol cars for no reason, and you're stuck there fighting for another 10 minutes. You're doing that longer than we're taking down the mission part.
Mm-hmm.
I just worry that they're going to not have enough content in the game and kind of do it very sparse, where you end up traveling for a long time, fight a whole bunch of stuff along the way, and then you're in another location doing whatever.
Yeah, like Gears 5.
Yeah, and well, to your point, that's the extreme that I hope doesn't happen. I don't want this to be an open soft Ubi world experience, because that was fun for a game or two, but they do it in everything. It's garbage, right? It's poor game design. The fact that they include it in every game they make, other than Siege, there's probably some other ones. Go ahead, at me. There's probably a couple other games that they don't.
You're gonna get
fit that model, right?
Mario versus Rabbids.
Okay, AC Origins, Division, Ghost Recon, or AC, I should just say. I'll bet you, yeah, there's a couple other games I'm not thinking of, but I hope that's
Far Cry in there.
Far Cry. You know, this go to an area and you have, to your point, just get distracted by random crap in the middle. God, it would make me laugh, but that sad laugh, that kind of like face palm in Rise of the Skywalkers moments, you know, when something happens and I literally went like this. But if in Halo you have like a banished level, and the more you just piss them off, you get the, you know, like the stars in Grand Theft Auto, or to your point, Mike, in Wildlands, you piss stuff off, and I forget what that mercenary group. Yeah, more and more of them would come.
Now,
but
what if it was that you got the banished pissed enough, and they're like max level? They send Craig after you.
He's a massive like. Yeah,
he's the max level of the banished being pissed.
I'd be
off.
okay with that.
Craig.
I'd be okay with that.
It's fucking Craig.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just frustrated. I want to be a Halo fan, but 343 has slowly shown to me that they can't. They're not doing a good job. I don't know if it's leadership.
Is this?
I don't know if it's
Is this their fault, or is this Phil Spencer who's not stepping in and like saying, "Hey, this is Xbox. Like, you are shitting on Xbox by not being able to do what you're doing."
That's what he should do.
That's a good point. Like, to me, I was thinking about that today. You can't. So 343 was been around longer than Phil's been in charge, so you can't lay Halo 4 at his feet. Maybe 5. I'd probably give him a pass on that. Master Chief Collection, and depending how this turns out, yeah, I mean, we've had over 10 years now of 343, and they've proven that. Again, I don't know if it's leadership. I don't know if it's leadership from like the CEO level, like Phil Spencer, that should be stepping in, but something's wrong there. This is unacceptable from your flagship IP and the studio that runs that IP. Completely unacceptable in my books, and I don't know what's going on there. Jason Schreier will hopefully clear that up for me.
I have a gut feeling there's never going to be a Jason Schreier article, purely because it's just not that interesting. I think it's just going to be poor management and not a clear objective, so it just doesn't materialize the way they wanted it to, and that'll be it.
They went and we just want to do open world, and that's the only plan they had.
I mean, we saw the bones of a game a year ago, over a year ago now. Yeah, we saw the bones of it, so we know there's a foundation. So this is literally at this point a question of what have they built onto those bones? What does this house look like? Yeah. And we don't know.
Yeah, but you could.
We're 3 months out.
You could typically tell if the foundation looks like shit. You shouldn't buy the house, no matter how pretty it looks on top.
But I would make the argument that, I mean, as a foundation, again, that it didn't look like total shit. It definitely wouldn't have been ready. It'd be tough to make it ready by that year, but
it goes back to my argument that I had last year. Flagship IP on new hardware /PC, and that was what you showed. Was it a bad looking game? No. Was it a bad looking game for your God of War IP that's going to be on your new ray tracing 4K machine? Yes. It was awful.
I think you're focusing on the wrong I don't think you're comparing it to the right game. Cuz you got to remember,
what's a better comparison?
Something with multiplayer.
Gran Turismo?
God of War is a single player experience. There is no other human being next to you playing with that game. But that adds complexity. We can't pretend like it doesn't.
Okay,
and that's the problem.
If you're talking about the big PvP multiplayer,
no.
Or are you talking about just co-op?
Both.
Because you could make God of War just as good as it is with co-op, and I bet you it would be just the same.
Doom Eternal looked great on PC.
And
had multiplayer, single player. It also proved that you didn't need open world. You just needed a good story, well-designed missions, and some fun gunplay.
The other thing that worries me about that open world thing is the little bit we saw at E3 didn't look that varied. And I mean, obviously that was only a tiny portion of it, but like, oh, you get to explore this Halo ring. It's like, well, unless they did a damn good job designing it, it's going to be very repetitive as far as what the environment looks like.
Well, it's you're still on a Halo
Wildlands. Ring. Yeah. It's the Ubisoft worry that I have. Is it going to be that crappy open world? But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Chris, I guess when I compare it to something like God of War, it's more of just that quality, right? Again, that care for that IP. It's a completely new person that came in and led that, and they still did a better job of creating a good continuation of the God of War story than from the previous 3 or 4 games. It just did a good job and put out a quality game, which is a flagship IP for PlayStation 5. It sells systems. Again, you can go in the argument that I believe that Microsoft isn't about selling systems, it's Game Pass. But you need to this is Halo. it's Halo.
As much as I'm an Xbox person, I mean, Sony has done such a better job handling their proprietary stuff than Microsoft has. And I mean, that's been true for the longest time now, but it's disappointing to see it being handled this way when you have such a big game coming. And like, I think it was you who said the other day, like, where's the hype train? There's no marketing for this. There's nothing.
There's no energy. But again, there was a little more energy around it in E3, I think, just because we did get a little bit more there. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, it's been a year. We're finally getting some. But like, there was no energy today when they showed this stuff. There was nothing on stage. I got more excited for what was it? Cult of Lamb or whatever.
Yeah, Cult of William. Yeah.
That dude yesterday that was talking about the Wasteland 3 expansion, there was energy there. When Joe came out and said, "Here's a launch date and here's a console and a controller," nothing. Like,
So
I don't
let me throw two things out. So Nintendo, again, going back to my home, Metroid Prime, right? They looked at it themselves and said, "This is not what we expect out of our game. This does not meet the Nintendo quality levels," right? Would you have been happy if they did that with Halo? If they just said, "Hey, you know what? I don't know how long it's going to be. We're cutting the entire thing, gutting it, ripping it out, and starting over."
I'll
I'd
wait.
be happy with that.
That's where I'm different than I think probably majority of people right now is I'm willing to wait for greatness instead of just settle for mediocrity. That's why I'm like, look, hey, like maybe Joe came in, he straightened out the campaign. It's pretty good, but they're having trouble with whatever. Again, what did they change from last year where campaign was promised to be in it, which they did last year twice, to now where it's like, oh, it just doesn't work. What has changed makes me worried. But like, yeah, I will wait. To your point, if they even just scrapped the single player and said, hey, I mean, I guess at this point they probably would have to just put out the multiplayer, right? But I would wait another year if they want to delay it again to make a good game, to put all this stuff in there, to have a complete Halo experience instead of use live service as and get it on Game Pass and Halo / Xbox 20-year anniversary just to get it out to us. I'll wait for greatness.
Do you think this push has anything to do with the 20th anniversary stuff, like making sure we hit a date too?
I think there's business.
Sure, yeah.
I'm wondering if
there's marketing stuff there. Yeah.
What marketing stuff? There's no marketing.
They just marketed a new console.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
again.
My last bit is just to pull us back away from that.
Yeah.
Oh shit! What was it? No, it just popped out of my head. There's another. The hell was it? Continue. Well, I think.
Okay. I'll say this about this. Me, Matt, I have a character flaw of being hopeful. I am hopeful that this will be good. I'm still optimistic that this will be good. I do feel a little better about the multiplayer just because they've shown more of it. I am still concerned about the single player, but because it's an IP that got me into, I played gaming for a while, but really Halo and the Xbox really kind of pushed me into what I do now. Is just, I'm hopeful. I want it to be good. I want to love Halo again, and I haven't felt excited about Halo for a very long time, and I want that to be there. So I'm hoping it'll be good. I'm hoping all this stuff is just.
Are you? Because you kind of just spent about a half hour just really shitting on it.
Yeah. So that's another thing I'm okay with. I'm okay about being critical about things I love. We can you want to talk about Star Wars, Star Trek, Halo, Star Wars? Those are all IPs I love.
Let's not talk about
Star Wars twice.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, Star Trek. Sorry, Star Wars, Star Trek.
Here's a glimmer of hope for you, Matt. Like, we have to also understand that this is the first time they're trying something with this open world aspect, this new like thing to it, right? They haven't done this with Halo. It's new to that team. They did a little bit Gears 5, different studio, but different
engine.
You get a little bit of difference there. Maybe this is, they're trying to find something that they can build upon in the future so that we'll get a better open world option. So being that it is a new style, you have to give it like some credit, some slack, right?
If you want my baseline, no. Okay.
How many other do we want to sit here and name other games that
do
cooperative campaigns
hold on, wait.
in open world settings?
Let me measure it this way for you. The Wii U is a giant piece of shit. Terrible design, terrible everything. But having that handheld controller with the screen in it gave us the Switch, right?
Yeah,
it's an obvious evolution.
Like, the PSP, the Game Boy Advance, the Sega Game Gear, all of those things also led to it. But this was how do we get high definition into a handheld that can also be a console, right? Like, so think about that with Halo, where we're looking at this is the evolution of where Halo's going. This is just the baby steps, so you're gonna have to deal with your shitty Wii U to get your better one later.
I don't. If campaign is shitty and open world is shitty, I don't think adding co-op's gonna. But yeah, I got what you're saying.
If you want my honest,
Misery loves company, man.
If you want my honest theory, considering they do advertise it slightly as an open world game, though I've heard that it's originally when they talked about open world, it wasn't in the same sense as like a Wildlands or something like that. There was still some guidance to it. An open world game with multiplayer with co-op does introduce some new issues for how you manage a co-op game, especially with that kind of system. And I'm going to guess that's where the difficulties are. Yes, other games can do it. I understand it. I know you're going to bitch about it.
Halo
that's
does
fine.
It, though.
Halo not in a more open sense world.
In the multiplayer version of it, you're doing the same thing. It is a big open area.
But you're only loading up certain areas and then it jumps you back.
Yeah, you're only rendering where the other player is at too. It's not like you have to render both chunks of the world for both players if they're too far apart.
I'm guessing no, because it just bounces you as soon as you hit a checkpoint. The other guy bounces to you.
I mean, I'm talking about PvP multiplayer for like the.
Oh, those maps aren't that big.
Some of them are, but you're tracking several players in it, right? So when you take an open world, if you split it up, all you're doing is rendering for two different people. You're not like you don't have to pull the other person into your zone. Each person playing it is just rendering a different part. And if anything, the hardware has gotten better, so they should be able to do it.
It depends on one, how well the engine handles it.
It's their engine.
Yeah, I know. I'm not.
That's where they fucked up.
But we don't. Yeah, exactly. We don't know how well the engine is designed to handle that kind of stuff. It could be something someone honestly forgot about how to develop properly, so it kind of chugs at it, and that's the issue. And it's not. They've talked about this being a very complex. The goddamn planet has wildlife. None of the other Halo rings have shown that kind of
wildlife.
Yeah, it had the weird bird creatures that jumped away pretty quick and left.
There was that big like tusk thing.
Borderlands.
Whatever that was. Again, games have handled it, not games with this engine. So we're kind of making a lot of assumptions about it. And yeah, you can always find a million different games that have already done it. Not with this engine.
But the design of the engine has to include something like that, though. That's kind of where, like, to Dan's point, it has to be that this is like building, a space station with just one spot where it's perfectly great to blow the whole thing up. Like, that's what they did. Like,
look, I'm saying
we'll see.
There's a lot of things we don't know. And you can make assumptions all day long, but it's just that. It's just assumptions.
So if we go off of empirical evidence, 343 has not had a good track record of good games. So it's not an assumption at this point. It is, or it's not something that we don't know.
Record.
It's
what they
something
do.
that we can assume based on their past.
This is what they do.
But yeah.
I get it's a new engine. It's just there's 6 years in development. We've already heard rumors of troubled management, development, trashing. Apparently, I think it was 2 or 3 years into the development, they trashed the game and started over and developed a subspace engine. Is the rumor or the information that has come out? I don't know. There's something wrong here. And I think to your point, if this was their first time with a game they were making this happen, or it was a new studio, sure, I'll forgive you. But track record says gone done fucked up now.
Didn't you just get done saying that they had trouble with this engine, and now you're completely rejecting the fact that they may have missed something in the development?
No.
They rebuilt. They started a new engine.
They rebuilt. Yeah, but and this is probably a heavily modified Halo engine they already had. Just as we talked earlier in the show, I think probably just gutted it and built it up and then called it a new engine. But again, also, co-op is a core part of this. what is going wrong that you can have these. You've built some sort of networking and cooperative play into your engine from the start. You have these large. You can support. We have multiplayer. We have big team battle. That's not a
system.
No, you still use that kind of network.
The networking is the same, but the rendering is not the same.
But again, you render locally on your scene, and this isn't like you're rendering both yours and the other person's unless it's local. But then you trim down resolution, which then there's less stress on the system that way, right? You're not doing a full 40K at that point. You're doing two smaller systems, right? I don't think this is something that was built core into the system and something went wrong. And again, if this was their first time with problems, I'd maybe forgive them and go, okay, next time don't let this happen again. But
man, I'm just trying to give you some answers, and you're rejecting them out of hand. So,
I am.
So looking at the information, the Blam engine that was the previous to the Slipspace, Slipspace is the majority of the old engine. So
it goes back to what we were talking about with Call of Duty.
I'm not a developer. I'm making a lot of rough assumptions based upon what I have, and I'm trying to give you something to latch onto, and you can choose to reject it if you want. That's fine.
Because of some of the because
I don't work for the goddamn company.
because of their communication and other things that if you weren't sure you could put. Why would you spend time developing bots if you weren't sure you could put in a core feature like cooperative? Get the dev team to work on that.
Because bots are based off the AI you use for the enemies already.
Cooperative gameplay is based off of your networking code and already built single player.
But it's rendering two different systems. You're rendering a more complex system in a single player game than you are in a multiplayer game.
But for only 2 people. Or is it 4?
Up to 4 people.
So that instead of 50, I don't know. Anyways, we're going to spin on this. Point is
Chris is always wrong per usual.
Matt's mad, and it will not accept any other arguments other than 343 done messed up.
I think we know they messed up. I don't think anybody's arguing that they didn't mess up. I think everybody agrees that this is a colossal screw up to not have this at launch.
Yeah.
Why it happened and what are the reasons? Again, we don't know. We're not going to know because they're never going to tell us. We can only assume that it was a screw up somewhere.
Matt's unhappy. That's the takeaway from this.
Yeah, but that's not what the chapter is going to be called on YouTube. It's going to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, nobody started crying, so that's good.
Yet.
We
still have time.
We still have time.
There have been tears.
There is, if it makes you feel better, Matt, there is an internet poll going right now to get Halo to move to Unreal 5. Unreal 4. I don't remember what it said.
That would probably be more than a year's delay.
Yep.
So that's dumb.
Well, you said you'd be willing to wait.
No.
If
that's what they want to do,
if
that's what they want to do, and that'll make a better experience and a complete experience, I'll be happy to wait. It just seems like a very dumb decision at this point. After probably,
they should I honestly think they should just release the multiplayer and figure out the single player stuff. You know, you do get into that window of how much of the multiplayer is going to, what's that word when you reveal something before somebody else spoil?
I think that's the main reason.
Part of it.
I think it's a big reason because they're tying a lot of the season story
together. Yeah.
But I might be singing. Come December, I might be singing praises of how great the game is. I can tell you too, for sure. Even if I love the game, both single player and multiplayer, I will still be unhappy that co-op is not in it.
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to add
I might be
another
singing a
layer.
different tune. I'm okay to change my opinion as more information comes available, but I will still argue till the end that at least for campaign co-op, don't want to leave my Forge friends out there, but I'd put that as a close second on priority. but I will still
Here's
complain
what the
about no
truth
co-op.
is. I have the truth for you, Matt.
the truth.
The truth. And it is not
The
that
prophet of truth.
I will be, once you figure this out and agree with me, when you see it, you will call me that. We're getting a multiplayer campaign. We're getting one. It's just different. So we're getting the story mode in multiplayer, right?
You're getting the seasons. You're getting
the
stories.
seasons. The seasons are a type of story. It is a type of multiplayer story because the campaign is so god awful.
It could be. I'm scared of
that
it.
they were like, we need to rectify this somehow and give them something.
Now, is it a prequel or a sequel?
Oh,
It's
God
an
damn
inter-
it.
Why?
It's an interquel.
Why would you
Interquel.
do this?
It is an interquel as it happens at the same time.
It's a
Basically-
spiritual reboot. What do you call a spiritual reboot?
A new game.
Nequel?
Nequel.
Nequel?
Nequel.
Nyquil? I don't know. All right. This
It's
is
a NyQuil because it'll put you to sleep. That's how bad the campaign is. I think it's going to be. I actually, just thinking about it, I think it's going to be extremely sparse. I don't think you're going to have much for the campaign. And if you play through it alone, you're going to find that. And that's probably why there's no co op campaign, because they're like, what is the point of putting the co op on there because it's so sparse?
I think this is going to be. I'm going to compare it to this game, but I don't think they're going full-fledged games as a service. I think it's going to be a lot like Destiny, because this is a I think their random number they picked is like 10-year game, right? It's like right. So they're going to continue to add multiplayer and single-player stuff or story to it. And I imagine that I don't know if it's going to be yearly. I don't know if it's going to be every 3 years we get a big chunk of story dropped on us and a new multiplayer meta with new maps. But this is going to be, I think, very similar to kind of Destiny, where they just, for whatever they on 5-6 years now of Destiny 2, they just keep adding more story, and then they tell more story through the seasons. Again, hopefully they don't go, what are they?
Full Destiny.
Full Destiny, but who knows? Who knows?
I'm feeling like a Robert Downey Jr. quote here about it, but
Oh my God.
I get the feeling that they're going to go full.
I think Microsoft knows that this game, no matter what, in and of itself, was never going to be. It's not going to have the sales numbers that other Halo games would have in the past, because, I mean, none of us are going to go buy it, no matter what. We never were.
If I get a hold of a console, I will have bought one, because the digital copy does come with the
it would have been
console.
attached to it. Yes, but all of us were going to play it via Game Pass. That's just how it was going to be. So,
If I play it,
But
fair.
To your point, I think this goes into the whole new Microsoft model of things, which I completely am on board with, and I agree with. I
Until
this
now.
coming for years and trying to tell people that this is more to push Game Pass. Like,
It's 100%.
It's not. I mean, it's still to make a good game, but this is to add value to Game Pass to get more subscribers on Game Pass, and that's what they're aiming for, right? And that's free to play multiplayer is going to be there to bring people in and bring people into the ecosystem. Whether it's that's why all these games are Xbox and PC. Why it's going to be playable by cloud. Again, it's all bring them into the ecosystem and play these games. So yeah, we might not get raw sales numbers of holy shit, Halo Infinite just broke this record. It's amazing, but it's probably, we might see articles in a couple months of increase in Game Pass due in part to Halo Infinite success, and then other people get hooked because cloud or other games or whatever.
yeah, if you pay 3 months of Game Pass, you've bought a copy of Halo, right?
Yeah.
So if people continue to do a year's worth of it, then on that one game that pushes it really well, you've made, like 4 Halos. It's by far way more money.
Oh yeah, by a wide margin.
I say we end it here because we're just kind of spinning in the mud now, just reiterating. And
I want to end it.
We've been doing that for about 20 minutes. I
thank you for letting me rage and vent, whether my arguments were sound or not. This all comes from passion and love and caring. although it may not sound like it at times. You should hear me talk about my Philadelphia Eagles.